I watched in complete shock as my boss Patrick stood at the front of the boardroom, clicking through slides of my software prototype. 2 years of my life flashed on that screen. Every late night, every weekend, every breakthrough moment, all mine. But Patrick's name was the only one on the presentation. "This revolutionary inventory management system will save us millions," he said, gesturing confidently at my code. The executives nodded, impressed. Someone whispered, "Brilliant work, Patrick." My stomach dropped to the floor. I stood frozen in the back corner, invisible to everyone. This was supposed to be our joint presentation. Patrick had promised we'd share the spotlight. I'd stayed up 3 nights straight perfecting the demo, making sure every feature worked flawlessly. But there he was, taking full credit. Not once did he mention my name, not even a casual, "My team helped," or "Susan contributed." Nothing. Just his smug smile as the board members clapped and congratulated him on his innovation. My hands shook with rage. 2 years of coding, debugging, testing, and dreaming, stolen in 20 minutes. Patrick caught my eye from across the room and gave me a tiny wink, like this was some kind of joke we shared between us. It wasn't funny. It was theft. The meeting ended with handshakes and backslaps for Patrick. I watched executives pump his hand, praising his vision and technical brilliance. My vision, my technical work. The CFO even mentioned fast-tracking Patrick for a promotion. I stayed pressed against the wall, trying to process what had just happened. People filed out, chatting excitedly about the new system. A few co-workers brushed past me without a glance. I might as well have been furniture. Patrick lingered, soaking up the last bits of praise. When the room finally emptied, he strolled over to me with that same arrogant smirk. "Great demo, right?" he said casually. "The board loved it." I stared at him, speechless. How could he act so normal? Like he hadn't just committed highway robbery in front of the entire company leadership. "Susan, you look upset," he continued, checking his phone. "You should be happy. This project will put our department on the map." Our department. Not my work. Our department. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him by his expensive tie and shake him until he admitted what he'd done. But I knew that would only make me look emotional and unstable. So I just nodded and walked away silently through the empty hallway. I couldn't sleep that night. By morning, I'd rehearsed my confrontation a dozen times. I marched into Patrick's office, armed with printouts of my emails, code logs, and development timeline. "We need to talk," I said, closing his door behind me. Patrick barely looked up from his computer. "If this is about the presentation, you're overreacting." "Overreacting?" I slammed my papers on his desk. "You presented my work as yours. You didn't mention me once." He finally looked at me, eyebrows raised like I was being ridiculous. "Susan, you're being dramatic. Yes, you helped with the coding, but you didn't do it alone. I provided guidance, oversight, direction." My mouth fell open. "Guidance? You asked me for status updates twice in 2 years. That's management," he said smoothly. "I delegated the technical work so I could focus on strategy and vision." I showed him the emails where he'd admitted he didn't understand the back-end architecture. He glanced at them and shrugged. "No one's going to check that," he said with a laugh. "Besides, I'm your boss. Everything you create here belongs to the company anyway." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away, completely and utterly. I went straight to HR. Surely they'd see how wrong this was. I had documentation, timestamps, everything. This was clear-cut theft of intellectual property. Lisa from HR listened patiently, nodding at all the right moments. She took notes and promised to look into it. I felt hopeful for the first time in days. That hope lasted exactly 24 hours. Lisa called me back in. "I've reviewed your concerns with Patrick," she said. "There seems to be a misunderstanding about collaboration versus individual contribution." "Misunderstanding?" I repeated. "I have proof." "Susan," she interrupted gently, "we all know you're a talented developer, but Patrick is the department head. He's responsible for overseeing projects and presenting them to leadership. That's his job." I stared at her. "So he can just steal my work?" "No one stole anything," she said firmly. "But I do want to caution you about team attitude. These kinds of accusations can damage department morale." Later that day, I found out why HR was useless. My cubicle neighbor whispered the gossip. Lisa and Patrick used to date. They still went on vacation together every summer. They were just friends now, but clearly that friendship came with benefits. I was completely alone in this fight against the corrupt system. The retaliation started immediately. Suddenly, my system access began malfunctioning. Passwords expired daily. My development environment crashed constantly. IT claimed they were investigating, but nothing ever got fixed. Then my responsibilities started disappearing. The database optimization project I'd been leading, reassigned to someone else. The client integration I'd designed, Patrick handed it to a junior developer. When I asked about it, Patrick acted concerned. "You seem stressed lately," he told the team during our morning meeting. "I think Susan needs to step back and focus on smaller tasks for a while." Everyone nodded sympathetically. Poor Susan, burned out from all that hard work. Never mind that the hard work was creating a revolutionary system that Patrick was now claiming credit for. He was setting me up to look incompetent, making it seem like I was struggling, falling behind, maybe even having some kind of breakdown. Then when he eventually fired me, everyone would understand why. It was brilliant and evil. I realized I had two choices: fight this publicly and look crazy, or find another way. I chose option 3. I started planning my exit strategy, but I wasn't going quietly into the night without a plan. I became a ghost in my own office. I showed up, did whatever busy work Patrick assigned, and kept my mouth shut. But behind the scenes, I was building my case. Every email got saved. Every code check-in got documented. Every late-night development session got time-stamped. I wasn't stealing anything, just collecting proof of what was already mine. I started reaching out to my network quietly. Old colleagues, former classmates, anyone who might know about job opportunities. I didn't mention the situation with Patrick. I just said I was exploring options. The responses surprised me. Apparently, my reputation in the industry was stronger than I'd realized. 3 different companies reached out within a week. Meanwhile, Patrick was riding high on his stolen success. He'd moved into a corner office and started wearing more expensive suits. I heard him bragging to clients about his innovative system. Every day was torture, watching him profit from my work. But I reminded myself this was temporary. I was gathering evidence, building connections, preparing my next move. Patrick thought he'd won. He had no idea the game was just beginning to unfold before his eyes. Before I left, I needed insurance, something to protect my work and prove Patrick didn't understand what he'd stolen. I left a small bug in the system code. Nothing malicious or harmful, just a delayed error message that would pop up after exactly 30 days. The fix was simple if you knew where to look, but Patrick had no clue how the system actually worked. The bug was hidden deep in the authentication module. It would cause login failures for exactly 20 minutes, then resolve itself. Annoying but not damaging. More importantly, the error message would display my developer ID in the logs. Patrick launched the system to 3 major clients that week. He held champagne toasts and gave interviews to the company newsletter. His photo went up on the innovation wall in the lobby. I watched it all with quiet satisfaction. In 30 days, his house of cards would start wobbling. Sure enough, 4 weeks later, the system crashed during a live client demonstration. Patrick panicked, frantically calling the IT department. When they couldn't fix it, he blamed Marcus, a junior developer who'd never even seen my code. I could have fixed it in 5 minutes. Instead, I watched Patrick sweat through his shirt while the client threatened to cancel their contract. My hidden signature was buried deep within the error logs. While Patrick was dealing with his system crisis, I was interviewing with Innovate Solutions, his biggest competitor. The meeting went perfectly. They were impressed by my portfolio, especially the inventory management concept I'd developed. I didn't mention Patrick or the stolen work directly. I just explained that I'd designed a similar system at my current job, but wasn't getting the recognition I deserved. They understood immediately. "We believe in giving credit where it's due," the hiring manager said. "We'd love to have you lead our new logistics division." The offer was incredible. 30% pay raise, full creative control, and equity in any systems I developed. Everything Patrick had denied me. But I didn't accept right away. I told them I needed time to think about it, maybe finish some projects at my current job. They respected that and said the offer would remain open. Patrick, meanwhile, assumed I had no options. When I mentioned possibly leaving, he actually laughed. "Where would you go?" he asked. "You're lucky I didn't fire you after all this attitude." I just smiled and nodded. Let him think I was desperate and trapped. It would make my exit that much sweeter. The irony was absolutely delicious, considering what was coming next. I told Patrick I'd decided to stay, but I admitted feeling disengaged and undervalued. I played the defeated employee perfectly. "I'm glad you're being realistic," he said. "But if you're staying, we need to restructure your role, something more appropriate for your current performance level." He offered me a position 2 levels down from where I'd started. Lower pay, grunt work, basically a demotion disguised as a fresh start. The humiliation was supposed to break me. "You're lucky I'm giving you this chance," he added. "Most managers would have let you go by now." I accepted gracefully, even thanked him for his patience. Patrick looked so pleased with himself. He thought he'd crushed my spirit completely. What he didn't know was that I needed to stay exactly 3 more weeks, long enough to document every system process, back up my personal work files, and transfer my contacts to my personal devices. Also long enough for my second bug to activate. I'd planted another delayed error, this one in the reporting module. In 18 days, every financial report would show incorrect data for exactly 48 hours. Patrick would look incompetent in front of the board again. My revenge was methodical and perfectly timed for maximum impact. Patrick announced my promotion to the team with fake enthusiasm. I was now Senior Quality Assurance Coordinator, basically a glorified tester. He made it sound like a reward for my dedication. "Susan will be overseeing all system testing and documentation," he said during the all-hands meeting. "This role is crucial for maintaining our high standards." A few people actually congratulated me afterward. They didn't realize I'd been demoted. Patrick had spun it perfectly. I was moving into an important specialized role that matched my strengths. My new cubicle was in the basement next to the supply closet. My computer was a 5-year-old desktop that took 20 minutes to boot up. My inbox filled with passive-aggressive congrats emails from colleagues who clearly knew what had really happened. But I didn't care anymore. I was a double agent now, working for the enemy while planning their downfall. Every day brought me closer to my real goal. I spent my lunch breaks meeting with lawyers, documenting my intellectual property claims. I wasn't planning to sue, yet. I just wanted legal proof that the work was mine. The basement office was actually perfect. No one bothered me down there. I could work on my documentation in peace. The isolation gave me time to plan my next moves. 3 days before I planned to quit, Leah from the intern program approached me. She was nervous, looking around to make sure no one was watching. "I need to tell you something," she whispered, "about Patrick and your presentation." My heart raced. "What about it?" I was doing late-night data entry last week and saw Patrick editing files on the shared server. He was removing your name from documents and replacing it with his. She'd taken screenshots, dozens of them, file timestamps, edit logs, even a screen recording of Patrick literally deleting my contributions and typing his name instead. "I know it's not my business," Leah continued, "but it's not right. You've been nice to me since I started here. No one else even notices the interns." I could have hugged her. Here was proof. Digital, time-stamped, undeniable proof of Patrick's theft. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I'm tired of watching him stomp over everyone," she said. "He treats people like garbage and takes credit for their work. Someone needs to stop him." That night, I added Leah's evidence to my growing file. My lawyer was going to love this. Her bravery inspired me to push forward with my plans. I compiled everything into one massive digital portfolio. Emails, code repositories, development logs, edit histories, Leah screenshots, 2 years of evidence proving the system was mine. My lawyer was amazed. "This is the most thorough intellectual property documentation I've ever seen," she said. "You could win this case in your sleep." But I wasn't planning to sue. Not yet. I wanted to timestamp everything legally, establish ownership, and protect my future work. The lawsuit could wait. Instead, I sent copies to 3 different servers and had the documents notarized. If Patrick ever tried to claim my work again, I'd have bulletproof proof of ownership. Meanwhile, Patrick was struggling with the second system bug. Financial reports were showing random numbers, client invoices were calculating incorrectly, and the board was asking uncomfortable questions. He'd stopped holding press interviews about his innovative system. Instead, he was quietly hiring expensive consultants to figure out what was wrong. If only he'd asked me. I could have fixed both bugs in 20 minutes. But Patrick was too proud to admit he needed help, especially from the employee he'd demoted to basement quality control. The evidence package was absolutely bulletproof and completely damning for Patrick. Friday morning, I walked into Patrick's office and placed a sealed envelope on his desk. He was on a conference call, frantically explaining to clients why their reports were showing negative inventory levels. "I'll call you back," he told them when he saw me. "What's this?" he asked, holding up the envelope. "My resignation," I said simply, "effective immediately." His face went white. "You can't quit without notice. We have procedures." "Actually, I can," I said. "I checked the employee handbook. 2 weeks' notice is recommended, not required." He tore open the envelope and read my lawyer-drafted letter. His expression got darker with every line. "This intellectual property clause is ridiculous," he sputtered. "You can't prevent us from using systems you developed here." "I can if I develop them on my own time with my own resources," I replied calmly. "Which I did, and I have documentation proving it." I turned and walked toward his door. "Susan, wait," he called after me. "Let's discuss this. Maybe we can work something out." But I was already gone. I cleaned out my basement desk, said goodbye to Leah, and walked out of that building forever. The look of panic on his face was absolutely priceless. Monday morning, the system crashed spectacularly. Not just a small bug this time, complete system failure. The authentication servers went down, the databases corrupted, and backup systems failed to restore properly. Patrick had no idea how to fix it. The documentation I'd left was deliberately complex, written in technical language he couldn't understand. The consultants he'd hired were equally baffled. Clients started calling, demanding explanations. The board called an emergency meeting. Patrick was sweating through his shirts again, desperately trying to find someone who understood my code. But I was gone, and I'd taken my knowledge with me. From my apartment, I watched LinkedIn fill up with posts about system reliability and backup planning. My former colleagues were panicking, working 18-hour days trying to rebuild what I'd created. I felt a little bad for them. They were good people caught in Patrick's mess. But this was the price of stolen innovation. Patrick had claimed credit for work he didn't understand, and now he was paying for that arrogance. My phone buzzed with messages from desperate coworkers. "Do you know how to fix the authentication module? Can you help with the database restoration?" I ignored them all. The complete system meltdown was exactly what Patrick deserved for stealing. While Patrick's world was burning, mine was just beginning. Innovate Solutions welcomed me with open arms. They'd heard about the system failures at my old company and were even more eager to have me. "We'd love for you to rebuild that inventory system," my new boss said. "But better this time, with proper support and recognition." They gave me a team of 6 developers and unlimited resources. We had the new system designed within a week and built within a month. It was everything my original version should have been. Faster, more secure, more intuitive. The best part? They hired Leah as a full-time developer. She'd graduated early and was looking for her first real job. When I recommended her, they didn't hesitate. "You saved my career," she told me on her first day. "Patrick was furious when he found out I'd given you those screenshots. He tried to get me fired, but HR said he had no grounds." We worked together perfectly. She was brilliant, eager to learn, and shared my attention to detail. Together, we created something truly innovative. Meanwhile, Patrick was still struggling with basic system maintenance. Word in the industry was that his department was falling apart. Working with competent people again felt like a breath of fresh air. The whispers started reaching me through my professional network. Patrick was under investigation. The board had discovered major discrepancies in project documentation and was asking uncomfortable questions about authorship. Apparently, when they tried to trace the development history of the failed system, they couldn't find Patrick's contributions anywhere. Every major breakthrough, every innovative feature, every critical module traced back to me. HR was scrambling to cover their tracks. Lisa suddenly became very interested in proper documentation procedures and intellectual property policies. Too little, too late. My former colleague Marcus reached out privately. The board brought in forensic accountants, he whispered during a coffee meeting. They're auditing every project Patrick claimed credit for. It turned out Patrick had been stealing credit for years. Not just from me, but from other developers who'd left the company or been forced out. The pattern was becoming clear. They found your name all over the system files, Marcus continued. Patrick tried to say you were just a contributor, but the evidence is overwhelming. Justice was finally coming. The investigation was uncovering years of systematic theft and credit stealing. Patrick called me repeatedly. I let every call go to voicemail. His messages grew increasingly desperate. Susan, we really need your help with the system, he pleaded in the first one. Just a few hours of consulting, for old time's sake. I know we had our differences, said the second message, but we're a team. We can work this out. The third message was pathetic. The board is asking questions I can't answer. You know this system better than anyone. Please, just call me back. I forwarded all the voicemails to my lawyer. She sent Patrick a cease and desist letter, demanding he stop contacting me and acknowledging my ownership of the disputed intellectual property. His response came through the company's legal department. They wanted to negotiate licensing rights to my code. They offered a one-time payment of $50,000. I laughed out loud. My new system was worth millions, and they wanted to buy my old work for pocket change? My lawyer sent back a counteroffer. $2 million plus ongoing royalties, or that they could build their own system from scratch. We never heard back. The desperation in his voice was music to my ears, honestly. 6 months later, I was invited to present at the Regional Innovation Conference. Innovate Solutions entered my new inventory management system in the competition. This time, I would be the presenter. I spent weeks preparing, making sure every detail was perfect. The demo showcased features that made my original system look primitive. Real-time analytics, predictive modeling, automated optimization, everything I'd dreamed of building, but never had the resources to create. The night before my presentation, I practiced in the hotel room until 2 a.m. I thought about the last time I'd prepared for a major demo, staying up all night only to watch Patrick steal my spotlight. This time would be different. This time, my name would be on every slide. My voice would explain the innovation. My work would get the recognition it deserved. The conference hall was packed, 500 industry professionals, plus streaming to thousands more online. I checked the attendee list and smiled. Patrick had registered for the conference. He'd be watching from somewhere in that crowd. Perfect. This was my moment to shine and show everyone what I could do. I spotted him immediately. Third row from the back, slumped low in his seat like he was trying to hide. His expensive suits were gone, replaced by a wrinkled shirt and cheap tie. He looked like he'd aged 5 years and 6 months. I began my presentation with confidence. Today, I'm excited to show you a system that represents 2.5 years of innovation, iteration, and improvement. The demo went flawlessly. The audience gasped at the real-time optimization features. They applauded the intuitive interface design. Someone called it revolutionary. During the Q&A, a journalist asked about the system's development history. I smiled. This builds on work I began at my previous company, I said clearly. But this version represents what's possible when developers have proper support and creative freedom. I caught Patrick's eye across the room. His face was pale, his hands clenched in his lap. He was watching me receive the recognition he'd tried to steal. The presentation ended with a standing ovation. Industry leaders lined up to shake my hand and exchange business cards. My new system won the Innovation Award unanimously. Patrick slipped out during the applause. He didn't stay for the reception. Seeing his defeated expression filled me with pure satisfaction and vindication. The next week, Patrick was quietly let go. The company called it restructuring, but everyone knew the truth. The board investigation had been devastating. They'd found evidence of systematic credit theft going back 5 years. Patrick had built his entire reputation on other people's work. When those people left the company, their innovations died with them because Patrick never understood what he'd stolen. The company's stock price dropped 15%. 3 major clients canceled their contracts. The innovation award I'd won only highlighted how far they'd fallen behind their competitors. Internal morale was at an all-time low. The remaining developers had lost faith in leadership. 2 more department heads were forced to resign. HR was completely restructured. Marcus called me with updates. "It's a ghost town here," he said. "Half the engineering team has quit. The projects are months behind schedule. They're talking about selling the whole division." I felt vindicated but not vengeful. Patrick had destroyed himself through his own greed and stupidity. I just documented the evidence. The complete collapse of his department was truly poetic justice in action. Leah forwarded me an internal email chain that had accidentally been left in her inbox when she'd transferred companies. The messages were from months earlier, back when Patrick was trying to push me out. "Susan is becoming unstable," Patrick had written to his manager. "I'm concerned about her ability to handle pressure. She's been making accusations about project ownership that are completely unfounded." Another message. "I think Susan is planning to quit soon. She seems disengaged and resentful. Probably best to transition her responsibilities to someone more reliable." The timestamp showed he'd been planning my demotion for weeks before the presentation incident. He'd been systematically undermining my reputation, setting up a narrative that I was difficult and unreliable. But the emails had backfired spectacularly. When the board investigation began, these messages looked like evidence of Patrick trying to silence a whistleblower. They proved he'd known the work was mine and had deliberately tried to discredit me. "These emails are what convinced the board to fire him," Leah told me. They showed a pattern of retaliation against employees who questioned his authority. The evidence was damning and showed his deliberate malicious intent clearly. 6 months after Patrick's firing, recruitment firms started calling him for reference checks. He was trying to find work, but his reputation was toxic. My new boss got several calls asking about Patrick's management style and technical contributions. She didn't lie or exaggerate, she just told the truth. "He lost one of the best engineers I've ever hired," she said simply. "She rebuilt everything he broke, and she did it in half the time with twice the innovation." Word spread quickly through our industry. Engineering is a small community, and Patrick's story became a cautionary tale about toxic management and stolen credit. A former colleague told me Patrick had been interviewing for months without success. Companies would be interested initially, then suddenly go cold after checking references. "He's basically blacklisted," she said. "No one wants to hire someone who steals credit from their team." I didn't feel sorry for him. This was the consequence of his choices. He'd built a career on lies and theft, and eventually, the truth had caught up with him. Meanwhile, my career was soaring. The Innovation Award had brought national attention to my work. I was getting speaking requests and consulting offers weekly. The industry had essentially turned him into a pariah for his actions. Patrick sent me one final email. It was short and desperate. "Susan, I know we had our differences, but I'm struggling to find work. Could you possibly endorse me on LinkedIn? I'm willing to acknowledge that you made significant contributions to the inventory system. Maybe we could present it as a collaborative effort." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely, but another part wanted him to know exactly how I felt about his request. I didn't respond to Patrick directly. Instead, I printed out his email and hung it in a frame behind my monitor at work. My team got a good laugh out of it. "Significant contributions?" Leah read over my shoulder. "You built the entire thing." The audacity was breathtaking. Even now, facing career ruin, Patrick couldn't bring himself to fully admit what he'd done. He wanted to split credit for work that was entirely mine. I left the email unanswered. Some people don't deserve responses. His pathetic attempt at reconciliation only proved how delusional he remained. Over the next year, I hired 3 former colleagues who'd been tossed aside by Patrick's regime. Sarah, who'd been forced out for attitude problems. David, who'd been demoted for failing to meet expectations. Miguel, who'd quit after watching Patrick take credit for his database optimization work. All of them were brilliant engineers who'd been broken down by toxic management. Under proper leadership, they flourished immediately. It's so weird to work somewhere that gives credit where it's due, Sarah told me during our team meeting. I'd forgotten what that felt like. We built incredible things together. My new division became the most profitable in the company. We won industry awards, landed major contracts, and set new standards for innovation. Most importantly, everyone's contributions were acknowledged. Every presentation included the full development team. Every patent application listed all contributors. Every success was shared. When David designed a breakthrough encryption algorithm, his name went on every slide. When Miguel optimized our database performance by 400%, he presented the results to our board of directors. I remembered how it felt to be invisible, to watch someone else take credit for my work. I never wanted my team to experience that pain. Building a team culture of respect and recognition felt incredibly rewarding. 3 years later, I stood in my corner office looking at the wall of awards. Innovation excellence, technical achievement, leadership and engineering. My name was on every plaque, every certificate, every recognition. The inventory management system, now called Flowmaster, was being used by Fortune 500 companies nationwide. My name was on every line of code, every patent, every licensing agreement. When journalists wrote articles about supply chain innovation, they quoted me directly. I'd built something incredible, and this time, no one could take it away. Patrick? I heard he eventually found work at a small consulting firm, making half his former salary. He kept a low profile, avoiding industry conferences and professional networks. His LinkedIn profile listed generic job responsibilities without mentioning any specific achievements. Justice doesn't always come with dramatic confrontations or public vindication. Sometimes it's quieter. Sometimes it's just about building something better and making sure your name is attached to it. I didn't burn Patrick's company down. I didn't need to. I just walked away and let the fire he'd started finish the job. The best revenge wasn't destroying his career, it was building mine so successfully that his theft became irrelevant. My real work had rendered his stolen copy obsolete. Every morning, I looked at that framed email where Patrick had begged for my endorsement. It reminded me how far I'd come and how much I'd overcome. My name, my work, my rules, my success spoke louder than words.